Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Synergizing Herbs and Nutraceuticals for Full Body Health. Proven ways to optimize the potency of your supplements, vitamins, and herbal remedies. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really honored to be here because we get to learn from a true master in the realms of herbalism and beyond, really, to healing and how we can create a partnership with the plant kingdom to work in a more holistic way with ourselves, our environment, and ultimately spirit to sort of create a very holistic health regimen. And so we're going to go into a lot of very practical things today, and also want to attune you to the deeper paradigm shift to really seeing working with herbs and plants as a way of building a kind of allyship across species divides that David Crow, who is our featured speaker here today, is really so good at illuminating. David is a master clinical herbalist. He's a researcher and educator of natural medicine. He's taught many, many programs for a full decade at Shift. He's steeped in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, so really brings a very holistic understanding to today's subject material. So David, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you again, Stephen.
Well, I want to let everyone know up front that we're going to have this time with David, and we're going to have a chance to go much deeper in a brand new program called Super Herbs, how to potentize and synergize botanical medicines with nutraceuticals to optimize whole body health. So more to come on that towards the end of the hour. Great. Well, I know you've done this a few times, but it's also always helpful to have a little bit of your backstory of what brought you to, I would say, this more holistic way of working with plants and medicinal plants in particular.
Right. Well, I'll just keep it real focused for the topic today, and that is I have been in clinical practice for over 40 years now, and that presents me with a lot of opportunities to see what works and what doesn't work with herbal medicine. And in my continuing telemedicine practice over the last 10 years, especially, there have been a lot of really challenging cases, and especially since the pandemic, it's been really challenging for people. And I am always furthering my own education. I'm always doing research on the cases that I'm working with, and I'm keeping an eye on what's going on with new innovations that are coming out. And a lot of information is continuously coming out in terms of the herbal field, the research and the development, and I'm connected to the herb industry in a lot of ways. And so I just keep learning. And the more I learn, the more I understand about how things can work together in terms of putting together classical Asian medical systems specifically, which is what I first trained in, Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine and Tibetan medicine, but integrating that into more and more relevant and applicable clinical applications. Because a lot of the things that I studied, they're really kind of tied up, rooted in the cultures that they come from. And so we're in the process of translating classical Asian medical concepts into modern contemporary Western culture. And so Ayurveda is here now, but it's only the beginning of Ayurveda arriving, and Chinese medicine is here, and it's a little bit more, but there's a huge amount of information that's not known about these systems. And in the meantime, what's relevant for our discussion today is that there has been this explosion in this field of natural medicine, in the field called nutraceuticals. And so nutraceuticals are an entirely new development, actually. It's kind of a mixture of modern scientific research and classical herbology and nutritional research and marketing. And so we have all of these products, and this is how a lot of people think about natural medicine. They think about them as the supplements that they're taking, and they are in all kinds of different categories. But this is something that isn't very well organized. It's not structured according to the same principles that classical Asian medicine is structured with. And this is why I'm particularly interested in integrating these systems, which is our discussion for today. And I came to this simply through my clinical practice. More and more people are coming to consultations, and they're telling me, well, I saw this doctor and they gave me 30 different products and I don't know what's doing what. And I just take everything all at once on an empty stomach. And I'm looking at this and thinking this needs some basic guiding principles. And the guiding principles are there in classical Asian medicine. And so let's use them. That's the really short story of how I got to this particular point of integrating nutraceuticals and herbal products together.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that background. I'm glad you've done all that deep research in so many fields so that we can benefit. So let's talk about nutraceuticals and understanding what they are and how they categorize, and then how you can work synergistically with herbs and herbal formulas.
Okay, well, let's give a little definition to nutraceuticals and what they are, a little orientation, so that we can start to talk about how to use them in conjunction with herbal medicine. That is the topic. How do we use nutraceuticals and herbs together? Classical formulas or common herbs that people know about. So nutraceuticals are a very recent development. Actually, they've only been around now for about 30 years. The term was coined back in the 80s, and it is a combination of ceutical and nutra. And we also see ceutical used in the obvious case of pharmaceuticals. And we also have another aspect of nutraceuticals, which is cosmeceuticals, which is the industry of cosmetics that are coming out now, natural cosmetics. So the term nutraceutical implies that there is a therapeutic benefit, that there's a medicinal therapeutic benefit to a particular compound that is derived from nutritional sources. And so this is really kind of a marketing term, really. It doesn't really have any medical relevance. It doesn't really have any legal meaning. It's more just a kind of FDA language, really. It's just language that says that these are products that people can use. And this is part of why it's important to sort this out and get clarity about what are these things, because they are not regulated and they're not recognized as being drugs, okay? And so herbs are actually in this category as well. Herbal medicine is not regulated. Herbal medicine is not allowed. Companies are not allowed to make any statements that these things do anything, okay? And that's because in a lot of cases, there is evidence that is minimal or it's lacking, or in some cases, there's an abundance of evidence, but in order to actually make that relevant, to make it a claim, you have to escalate this whole thing legally into the status of a drug. So it's a gray area, and it basically means that there are all of these different kinds of products available that give some kind of benefit. And what I find in clinical practice is that some things really do what they're reputed to do, and a lot of things, it's really questionable. And a lot of things actually can cause some problems for people. So I think that a good concept here to touch on is that there are different categories of products, and there's different categories of what nutraceuticals are. And if we define those, we'll have a real clear picture of what we're talking about here. So there's different ways to classify things, and the easiest to start with is that there are categories of products, okay, nutraceutical products. And so what are those? Those are going to be vitamins and minerals and things that are related to the digestive system, like digestive enzymes and probiotics and fibers. And then there are things that are extracted from plants, from food sources and herb sources that are very rich in certain compounds like flavonoids and carotenoids. And then another major category of nutraceuticals are amino acids. And then we have nutraceutical oils, things from, certain seeds, and also fish oils, omega-3 oils, things like that. And then we have glandular supplements, animal-derived kinds of products. And so this is one way that we can classify things is what are the products that are out there? And if we have that list, that gives us a pretty good idea of, oh, okay, this is the field of nutraceuticals. And everybody is probably familiar at some level, and most people are probably taking something. But then there's another way, and this is where we start moving toward the art and science of creating therapeutic synergies between these nutraceuticals and herbal formulas, herbal compounds, individual herbs or herbal formulas. And that is that we can classify these things according to chemical families, all right? And this is frequently how they're found also in the products that are listed. They will say, well, this particular product is rich in flavonoids, and this is rich in polyphenols, or this is rich in lignans or bioflavonoids or phytosterols. This is the chemical classification system. And it's very important to understand because those are the same basic families of things that we can correlate herbal medicine with in modern science as well. And this is how a lot of herbal medicine is now being understood in terms of the therapeutic effects. The bitter alkaloid compounds are very easy for modern researchers to understand that are extracted from the yellow bitter roots like golden seal and things like that. And then the final third classification that we can touch on here is the therapeutic functions. And so the therapeutic functions are what these compounds, what these products, what these supplements, what these nutraceuticals are supposed to do. And so we find them categorized according to claims that these are anti-inflammatory, or they are antioxidant, or they are nootropic, that they're good for our cognitive function, or they're insulin regulating or cardioprotective or lowering cholesterol or enhancing our libido or improving our athletic performance and so forth. And therefore, if we see these three primary categories, we have a pretty good overview of what the nutraceutical field, the nutraceutical industry, and the nutraceutical field as a medical system is all about. It's the basic category of the products that are there, and it's the basic compounds that are being focused on, and it's the basic claims about their therapeutic functions. Now, if we understand all three of those, then we can say, all right, how do these things work together with herbs? And the major reason that I am focused on this in my own research now and developing this more is because I see there's a tremendous amount of confusion. People don't really know that there's all kinds of differences in these things. And one of the most important things, and this is a bigger subject for a little bit more discussion later, and that is using these nutraceuticals according to the principles of Ayurveda or Chinese medicine. And so that's where we get the broader definition, and that's where we can bring them in and start to look at how to synergize these together with herbs.
Great overview. So let's dive into that. So let's build on that and say, how do we start to synergize them with herbs?
Well, let me just show you a few things. I can do a little demonstration here, a little urban nutraceutical cooking class, and this will give some ideas about some of the possibilities. Now, this is all based on having a conceptual framework for doing this. In other words, the use of nutraceuticals currently really doesn't have a conceptual framework. It's just like, okay, take these products. And when we look at the products, what we see is that there's no principles that we find in classical Asian medicine that include the taste of the nutraceutical, the taste of the compound, its effect on the digestive system, whether it's overall heating or cooling, its elemental qualities, and so forth. It's just like, okay, these are good for you, so take them. If we do that, we may end up taking a whole lot of things that are not really agreeing with each other. And I would say that one of the primary complaints is people say, well, these things hurt my stomach. or these things make my symptoms worse. Or another really common complaint is I take all these things and nothing happens. So if we synergize things together, then we can get a really good idea of what's going on. And so the first thing that I'll show you is going to demonstrate several principles, actually. And so I have some really nice, high quality organic astragalus root, sliced astragalus root here. Okay. And this is how it comes in herbal medicine. This is classical chopped herb that is cooked in Chinese medicine into a decoction. Now, one of the big complaints of allopathic medicine, which is totally valid, is that there's virtually no way to standardize or to understand the levels of the compounds when we do it this way. We don't know what we're actually getting as far as, is this high quality? Are we getting the astragalosides, the active ingredients? And so we start with the root, the raw herb, okay? And then what we do is we make a decoction out of it. And what we have here is like the classical tea. And now if we would like to develop this further and start to include more nutraceuticals, what we're going to be doing is actually building out what we could call a full spectrum of concentration. So this is concentrated to one level through the decoction, but then we also have astragalus tincture. Now, in the tincture form, it's more concentrated because the active ingredients have been taken out, and many of the herbal products now also have standardized levels of certain active ingredients. And so now what I'm going to do is that I am going to pour this astragalus tincture into the decoction. So what we're doing here is we're increasing the potency. We went from the decoction, which is really fairly low potency, to now a higher level of concentration of the active ingredients. And now we come to the real nutraceutical side of it. And the tincture, by the way, is classified in the category of nutraceuticals. But now I am going to add the real nutraceutical concept here is that we have the astragalosides taken out. And the astragalosides are recognized as being the active ingredient of the astragalus root. Now, some people would say, well, that's not very natural. And in a certain way, it's true, but it is derived from the root. It's just that it is more concentrated. And we could also say, well, the tincture isn't very natural either, because it's been extracted with alcohol. But all we're talking about here are the ingredients of the root being taken out sequentially in increasingly concentrated forms. And so if we take this capsule of the specific astragaloside number 4, and we put that in there, then what we've got is we have a full concentration spectrum. And this is new in medical history. This little blend that I made right here, it's probably never been made before. It's got the decoction of the root, the classical thing that they would have been using 2,000 years ago in China. And it's got the tincture, which is a relatively new innovation. And it's got the astragalosides, a totally new innovation. And so what this means is that this is actually more concentrated than just drinking the straight decoction. And it tastes really good. So that's one concept, is that we've got a full spectrum. Let me show you one more thing here quickly, and that is something we can do on the other side of the therapeutic spectrum. That was really like for rejuvenation, immune boosting energy, and so forth. Astragalus, of course, is famous immune tonic now. But let's do something on the other side of the therapeutic spectrum and think about something for detoxification. And so for detoxification, we want to think more like green. We want to think in terms of vegetable juice as our base. And so I have a nice vegetable juice from the local herb store, local health food store. And so I'll just take a little bit of this vegetable juice. And this is how we can create synergies, is that we can put nutraceuticals into our foods. And that's actually a really interesting aspect of classical Asian medicine as well. Actually, medicine all over the world used to be put into the diet more. And so in Chinese medicine, there are all of these formulas of how you can cook dong quai, and you can cook astragalus, and you can cook burdock, and you can cook so many things in food. And so that's a way of synergizing that's been well known for a long time. But now, what are we going to do with this green concept? Well, you could take all kinds of vitamins, minerals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're synergistic. Synergistic means they support each other's functions. They potentize each other. They make each other more effective, and they reduce any kind of side effects. They are more specific for each phase of digestion. So what would go nicely with a green drink? How about just chlorophyll? Okay, well, chlorophyll is a nutraceutical product. And so we've got this beautiful dark green, and we can just add a few drops of chlorophyll. We're just enhancing the blood cleansing, detoxifying value of our green drink. Then we can escalate this a little bit more in terms of the full concentration spectrum and add some tinctures of some herbs that are also green and detoxifying. And so there's a lot of herbs like that. But one of the ones we might think of is plantain leaves, okay? Plantain leaves are very cooling, anti-inflammatory, detoxifying. And so right now, we've got a whole new concept going, which is that we're synergizing our foods and herbs together. Now comes the real clinical level, synergy. And that is that we can put a nutraceutical called berberine into this. And this is an extracted bitter alkaloid. Berberine is very popular now, and it has been used, of course, for thousands and thousands of years. It's in the yellow roots primarily. It's in golden seal, it's in coptis, it's in a number of other things. And this is one of the nutraceuticals that is now being used for various issues with metabolic syndrome, and specifically for regulating insulin, blood sugar, bringing down the A1C. And this is really concentrated, and it's really bitter, and it doesn't give nutrition. So it's only nutraceutical as far as its classification legally, but it's not really technically a nutraceutical because there's no nutrition in it. This is really very medicinal, but if we take this, we are now adding the highest potency to our concentration spectrum, and we've got something that is really detoxifying and really cooling and really cleansing, but it's also really bitter. And this is where we have to understand that the taste of the nutraceuticals is really important, because people take berberine with all kinds of other things, and they shouldn't. We should take things according to the taste and according to their temperatures and according to their gunas, their elemental qualities, according to certain times in the digestive biorhythm. Because if we take this on an empty stomach and then we don't eat, it's going to give us heartburn. So even though it's supposed to be cooling, it could really aggravate our stomach acid. And so this is something that isn't really offered in any kind of structured, organized way. It's like, well, all right, berberine is bitter. What does that mean? How do we actually use it effectively? So, Stephen, those are two examples of how we can synergize things together. And they demonstrate a couple of things. One is this full concentration spectrum. And another is how things can actually combine together. So with the astragalus, it's only one herb, but we're getting this full spectrum of concentration. But with this green drink, we're actually bringing in a lot of different things. We've got food, and then we've got herbs, and then we've got a really strong nutraceutical, and they're all combined together. And in all of these cases, when we're creating synergies, we're looking for two primary effects. We want something that's either going to enhance a real specific targeted goal, or we want to create something that's a little bit more holistic overall in terms of what is it going to do in the body. And that's where we can learn so much from the classical principles of formulation that are found in Chinese medicine, because we find those formulas, and in Ayurveda also, we find that those formulas are built in these two basic ways. One is that they take everything and really focus it. So it's really going to have a strong effect in one way. Or if there's something really strong, they're going to balance it so it doesn't irritate the stomach, so that it doesn't cause too much heat, so that it's not too stimulating, and so forth. So these are two of the basic objectives in creating these synergies, and two really simple examples. But there's lots and lots of ways we could do this. That's what we're going to be doing for 7 weeks.
Well, it's really cool. I'm sure there's going to be amazing new examples in your 7-week program, and it's really also fun. You kind of get to play scientist a little bit there when you're mixing things up. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into the taste element and this sort of, I know that kind of leads into some of this balancing of different energies as well as Ayurvedic kind of perspective. And so maybe you can share a little bit more about like why integrating that understanding of Ayurveda is really helpful to the synergizing of nutraceuticals and herbs.
Absolutely. And this is a really huge subject, and it hasn't really been presented yet. We have, Ayurveda over here, and we have nutraceuticals over here. But this is really a preliminary first attempt to kind of integrate these together. And the more we understand these principles, how do these things actually work according to Chinese or Ayurvedic medicine? The more we understand these according to these terms, then the more effectively we can use them. So there is a really important system that people who have studied Ayurveda will be familiar with. And for those of you who are not, I will introduce it here very briefly. And this is the system of the tastes. And the terms that are used are rasa, virya, vipak, and prabhav, and gunas. And what that means, rasa means the taste. The virya means its heating or cooling effect, its potency. Vipak means what happens after it's digested. Prabhav means its unique therapeutic aspect, and gunas means its elemental qualities. And so the tastes are those things like sweet and sour and salty and bitter and pungent and so forth. And the vipak is, the virya is either heating or cooling. And the vipak is, well, that's a complicated subject, and there's a lot of debate about it. But some things transform into a different taste after they're digested. A real clear example is bitter, okay? It's supposed to be cooling. Bitter is cooling. It's anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, but it ends up being hot in the system. And what that means is if you just drank that, if I drank that green juice with the berberine in it and I didn't eat anything for a couple hours, it would give me heartburn. So that's vipak, what happens as it's being digested. And then prabhav is really the therapeutic effect that this herb or this formula is known to produce. Now, when it comes to the nutraceuticals, this is the only real system that is being used. They're not describing these things in terms of taste. They're not describing them in terms of temperatures. They're not describing them in terms of post-digestive effect, or they're not describing them in terms of gunas, the elemental elements, the qualities of heating and drying, or heating and cooling, or moistening or drying, or heavy or light, or these kind of things. They're only describing the products from the standpoint of prabhav. So in other words, if you take this amino acid in this particular athletic formula, it's supposed to help you build muscle mass. That's a prabhav. Or if you take this berberine, it is supposed to help you lower your blood sugar. That's a prabhav. Or you take this citrus bergamot, it's supposed to help you lower your cholesterol. That's a prabhav. But there's all kinds of problems if that's the only thing that you are considering, because take something like the citrus bergamot, very popular for lowering cholesterol now. It's a flavonoid that is extracted from citrus peels, bergamot. And there are many nutraceuticals extracted from citrus peels, which raises an interesting question of like, why would you want to pay all this money for these highly processed peels when you can just use the peels? And that is how it is done in classical Asian medicine also. So if you look at the taste of things, that's the beginning for understanding whether it's relevant for you or not. And so one of the questions that we should start asking here is, do these nutraceutical products work best for my constitution? And this is how we start to integrate them into classical Ayurveda. So a Vata person is going to need different kinds of nutraceuticals because there's nutraceuticals that will definitely increase your Vata, and they shouldn't. They are too stimulating. They are too cold. They are too drying. And you need exactly the opposite, okay? You need things that are warming and rich and nutritious and oily. And you would think then, like, you know, the essential fatty acids would be really good for Vata people. And then you look at the Pitta person, the constitution that's really overheated, and that's where you can see, all right, a lot of these nutraceuticals are really anti-inflammatory. And so a lot of nutraceuticals are very good for Pitta people. But you've also got to consider the condition of the digestive fire, the digestive system. And that's where the taste, again, is very important, because if you have something like citrus bergamot, and this is what we're trying to do here, is connect all of these things together holistically so that we really understand that just because a company says this product reduces cholesterol, it doesn't mean it's actually going to be able to get past your stomach very effectively, all right? And that's because the taste of all of these citrus-derived products is extremely sour. And sour is further concentrated when it's extracted and put into, you know, these capsules. And so what we're taking then with citrus bergamot is extremely sour, and sour is very heating. And sour then can really overheat the stomach. But there's no conceptual framework for that with a lot of these kind of things. So we have to consider the individual constitution. We have to consider the status of the digestive tract overall. And then we can start to get more realistic about whether this is actually going to be good for you or not. There's a real clear understanding in classical medical systems that there's a lot of things that you just aren't going to use. You just don't need it. It's not good for your body type. It's not good for your digestive system. But there's none of that in the field of nutraceuticals. There are, you know, some contraindications occasionally that you might find, but you got to do a lot of research to find out what will these things actually do to you, okay? Because they're not going to tell you all these adverse reactions. They're only going to tell you, oh, it's really good for this, this, and this. But if we have this broader concept of tastes and temperatures and so forth, then we can avoid a lot of things, and we can find that, all right, there's really a lot of things that are much better for a Vata person, Pitta person, a Kapha person, and so forth. And this is a really incredible exercise, actually, to go through and say, well, what are the tastes of the nutraceuticals? So I gave you one example. A lot of these citrus products, they're very sour. And then we can say, well, what about the vitamins? What taste do they have? Well, vitamin C is very sour also, you see. And if we know sour and we know what it does physiologically, then we can actually use sour more effectively and more holistically. Or likewise, we can say salt. What is salty in the nutraceutical department? Well, we would see that many of the minerals, you know, calcium is salty, for example. Well, that's great if we're using it correctly, but it also has problems, all right? Too much calcium, too much salt, hard on the kidneys. So what else is there? Well, sweet, there's all of these things that are sweet, and sweet is not just a taste. Sweet is also the building, nourishing effect. And so therefore we can say, well, what is sweet? Well, there's a number of amino acids that are sweet and building, you know. things that protect the gut lining, things that help build muscle mass, things that protect the brain, anything that supports the brain fluid, the essential fatty acids, that's going to be a little bit sweet from the building standpoint. Then we also have things that actually taste sweet, nutraceuticals that taste sweet. Certain amino acids are sweet in flavor. And then we have things that are bitter, like the berberine. And again, we see that it can have a potential heating effect. Another one, niacin, is extremely bitter, but it's very, very hot. See, so we go through and we look at the tastes, and that's the beginning of how to understand how to incorporate them, because formulas are based on taste. They're based on building out things. So you've got a balance so that it's not too spicy, it's not too bitter, or you've got it so it's really strongly bitter or really strongly sweet. So these are principles then that are found clearly articulated in classical Asian medicine that there's no reference to at all. And so what I am proposing here is that we really look at these nutraceuticals and say, all right, we've got all these major product categories. So where do digestive enzymes fit in? Well, they would be in the category of a pungent flavor, but a hot potency, a hot temperature, you see, or the opposite. Where do probiotics fit in with all of this? And probiotics are actually going to be more in the category of regulating the overall digestive heat and metabolism. And then we could say, well, where do different vitamins fit in? And vitamins have all kinds of different tastes, and the amino acids have all kinds of different tastes. And so we can approach things this way and really get a much broader understanding of how to use nutraceuticals clinically.
That's great. Well, it's super illuminating, and I'd love for maybe to focus all of what you've shared into like how you might go about treating a specific physiological condition.
Let me give a quick demonstration of something that would be a very important use of nutraceuticals for a specific condition. And I have broken things down into different levels of priorities when it comes to suggesting that people use or don't use nutraceuticals. And I think for the most part, that nutraceuticals are overconsumed, overused without any clear objective. They are possibly supportive and preventive in the long run, but when it comes to clinical use, we want to see some results. We want to see reduction of symptoms. Now, there is one aspect of nutraceuticals that I think is really important to consider, and that is support for the vision. And this is something that has real clear benefits in taking nutraceutical products. Now, herbs for the eyes are effective, but I find that if we extract the higher levels of concentration of some of the active compounds and take them in nutraceutical form, we're potentizing it. So here's an example. I have a glass of water, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a nutraceutical product for the eyes, and it's very rich in carotenoids, and these are pigments, and it's really interesting to consider that the compounds that are beneficial for the eyes are actually the colors of the plants. The pigment molecules of the plants are what feed the eyes, the nutrition. And so pigment is related to visual function, and pigment is related to light. So I am going to combine this now in a synergistic formula, and I'm going to put in 3 herbs that are also rich in pigments. But these are 3 herbs that enhance cerebral circulation. And so this is an example of how we can use herbs and nutraceuticals together for enhancing their effects. So the 3 herbs that I'm going to use for enhancing the cerebral circulation are going to be the 3 most famous herbs from 3 traditions that are the number one herb in each tradition for supporting the heart and the cardiovascular system. And so in Chinese medicine, this is going to be the danshen, the red root sage, the Salvia militarizia, and I'm going to add a little bit of this. And so this is one red compound. And then I'm going to add another red compound, which is interesting because they're all for the heart and the blood. And so I'm going to add hawthorn, which is the number one cardiovascular supporting herb from the Western tradition. And then I'm going to add the number one cardiovascular supporting herb from Ayurveda, which is also red, deep red, which is Arjuna, Terminalia Arjuna. So now I have created an herbal formula. And this is a very interesting synergy that is only possible now in history because we actually have access to herbs from North America and herbs from China and herbs from India all at once. And so now I have a mildly pinkish kind of formula here that is good for the cardiovascular system. And it supports cerebral circulation. And this is one of the reasons why we use these cardiovascular herbs for supporting cognitive function, because cognitive function is directly related to how much blood flow we're getting. And as we get older, blood flow to the brain declines. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a nutraceutical product. And this nutraceutical product is based on these carotenoids, these pigments. And this product is extracted highly concentrated pigments of saffron. And saffron is in the same red category of cardiovascular herbs, but also very good for supporting vision, and marigold. And so if we think about it, this is really like concentrated redness that's in this capsule. And so I'm going to just go ahead and pop this open, hope it doesn't get all over me. And so let me see if I can bring this up a little closer where you can see this. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's really dark. It's just like dark, dark orange. And so this is really like a formula now that is deep red concentrated pigments that are going to go into the stomach. They're going to enter into the cardiovascular system. They're going to support the heart. They're going to support the cerebral blood flow. And it's going to carry all these pigments into the eyes. And these pigments are what support vision. So this is an example of something that I think is really important. It's very safe. Okay, this kind of approach is generally very safe for people. The only concern clinically would be, don't take this if you're on heart medications, because some of these herbs can interact with heart medications. But for everybody else, I think this is a really good overall preventive supportive program, because everybody's got too much screen time now. Everybody's eyes are changing as a result of visual stress. So now it's dispersing here a little bit, and you can start to see that this pigment-rich formula, this synergy of nutraceuticals and herbs, is getting deeper and deeper red. And so this is very safe, very gentle, very rich in nutrients for the eyes. And we are sending it to the eyes using herbs for the heart. So that's an example of how we can make a synergy between nutraceuticals and herbs that is targeted for a specific purpose.
Well, David, this is so illuminating and so helpful. And I know that people are going to get so much value from being able to approach this in a really holistic way and combine the best of both worlds, if you will. So I want to spend some time talking more about your upcoming program, which is where people can learn how to do this really in depth in a really precise way. So we're really blessed that David has agreed to teach a brand new program for Shift, and it's called Super Herbs: How to Potentize and Synergize Botanical Medicines with Nutraceuticals to Optimize Whole Body Health. You can find it at the URL superherbscourse.com, superherbscourse.com. It's a 7-week program and is really going to lay the key foundations in each area so that you can do this in a sophisticated, safe, and holistic way. So, David, I'd love for you to share in your own words really what you're envisioning as the outcome for folks who are taking this program, and then I'll read out the module title so you give us a preview of what's coming in each.
Excellent. What I am hoping to achieve with this program is to help everybody take their clinical level self-care to a new level. And this is the work that I've been doing now for many years. The term clinical level self-care is relevant here because self-care requires that we are learning more and more about our own body, about physiology, about herbs, about diet, about exercise, about relaxation. In other words, if we want to minimize the risk of disease developing, if we want to overcome a pathology, if we want to treat something naturally, if we want to prevent something, then we have to know what we're doing. And this, of course, is what the nutraceutical industry is built on, is this promise or this hope that if you take these things, you're going to have these benefits. But it's not that easy. It'd be great if we could just take a pill, and it's a natural pill and it makes everything go away. But it doesn't really work that way. If we have, especially chronic problems or acute problems, then we have to know medicine. And that doesn't mean that we have to go to medical school. We just have to have some education. So my entire work, my mission, my vision at this point is really working with individuals and groups to just continue to educate ourselves more and more and more about how to use natural medicine effectively. And unfortunately, a lot of natural medicine that is out there is not very effective. And there's reasons for that. And the more we know about how to use things correctly, then the more benefit we're going to get. And so that's really my primary objective, is let's use all the tools at our disposal. And it's not just the herbs, and it's not just the nutraceuticals, because I'm always counseling people with, meditation practice, integrate meditation, integrate relaxation, integrate breathing, integrate visualization. And that's the whole basis of the illuminated herbalism kind of approach that we have been teaching here at Shift for a couple of years now, is integrate natural medicine into all kinds of different fields so that it becomes more effective. In other words, it becomes more effective to take our herbs if we are taking them very mindfully and with prayer and devotion and concentration and visualization. We can potentize the herbs. And we can do the same thing with the nutraceuticals. And so really, this is just a continuation of this process of synthesizing together these different fields of practice to make them more effective and to put them in the structure so that we use them more carefully. And that way we just start getting better and better results. So that's the primary objective here.
Sounds great. Very aligned with that. So let's go through the modules. We're actually calling them synergies, which is fun. And so you can find all the synergies laid out in detail at superherbscourse.com. So the first synergy is rejuvenate vitality, increase immune power, and support healthy digestion using synergies of foods potentized with botanical medicines and nutraceuticals.
In classical Asian medicine, we find lots of recipes where herbs are cooked in foods. And so we're just going to expand that a bit. We're going to look at some of those classical recipes, and we're going to start adding the nutraceuticals in with it. So we'll touch on topics like Anupana, which is a branch of medicine in Ayurveda that describes how, if you want to take certain herbs, you can put them in a vehicle, a certain kind of vehicle, like you can mix them with ghee, and that's going to slow down the assimilation in the gut. Or you can put them in wine, which is the classical way of kind of like a tincture concept. And that's going to enhance assimilation faster into the bloodstream. So these things were well understood as far as mixing with different kinds of carriers. And in Tibetan medicine, they call that the medicine horse. It carries the herb to different organs. And so we'll look at that. How can we actually mix nutraceuticals with specific foods to actually make them more effective.
Synergy 2, support bone health and protect brain functions using synergies of botanical medicines potentized with vitamins and minerals.
Right. So vitamins and minerals are a big category of products. But how do they taste? What is the taste of the B vitamins? What is the taste of vitamin D? What do these things do to our chi and our prana and our jing and our ojas? How do we use these according to the classical systems? And so that's where we're going to go into understanding this concept I introduced about the rasa, virya, and vipak, and prabhav, the tastes and energies and potencies. This is where we go a little bit more deeply now into integrating some of these things into the classical systems. But there's a lot of specific things in this module, like we would like to know how to enhance nutraceuticals, especially the vitamins, when we take them in the digestive cycle. And also, what about some of the new things that are coming out about using vitamins in IVs and infusions? And how do we want to use vitamins in conjunction with herbs? And we find some really good examples, like vitamin C combines really nicely with vitamin C rich herbs, okay? And then we have some things that are now really well known, but we'll look at them in more detail. Like it's pretty well known now that vitamin D is more important for bone health than calcium supplementation. But how do we potentize that with mineral-rich herbs, for example? And we also would like to look at some of the other minerals other than calcium. We'd like to look at iron specifically, because iron is something we can get from herbs. And iron is something that we can get from our diet. And iron supplements are numerous, but there's different types of iron, and they tend to be really hard on the digestive system. So how do we synergize iron? That's a big topic in this module.
Synergy 3, reduce inflammation, support vision, and protect cellular health using synergies of botanical medicine potentized with flavonoid nutraceuticals.
All right, this entire class is devoted to the flavonoids. And so we're going to cover things like the plant pigments and the citrus flavonoids, things like hesperidin and quercetin and rutin. Anybody who shops at the health food store in these products are going to know these things. And these are really good for enhancing our vision. They regulate blood sugar. They're good for cellular protection, cardiovascular health. A lot of benefits from flavonoids, okay? And so the flavonoids have certain problems, though, when it comes to being too concentrated. And we would like to know how to mix them correctly with things that are synergistic. And so this is also where we're going to get into more of this kind of creating a full concentration spectrum by mixing these things with food and with herbs. And then we can potentize some of these that are for the immune system with foods and herbs, and also for cardiovascular protection. And I gave one example there with the 3 red herbs and the saffron. That's an example of how we can approach targeting things very specifically.
Synergy 4, support immunity and eyesight and enhance antioxidant functions using synergies of botanical medicines potentized with carotenoid nutraceuticals.
Right, the carotenoids, the carotenes. These are widely found in a lot of our foods, and these are things that support the eyes. That's one of their functions, but they also are very good for protecting the cells. They're also very good for immunity. And some of these things are very popular and well known, things like lycopene and alpha and beta carotene, and these are antioxidants. And so this gives us the opportunity to talk about, well, what is oxidative stress and what are free radicals and how do these things protect us from those things? This crosses over also into anti-inflammatory herbs as synergies, things to support our vision again, and this also gives us an opportunity to overlap with cognitive functions supporting the brain.
Synergy 5, enhance respiratory immunity, optimize digestive functions, and support deep sleep using synergies of botanical medicines potentized with essential oils.
I am teaching this class about essential oils because they're being used as nutraceuticals, which is harmful. So the way that people are being harmed is they're being told that they should take them internally and they're going to get all these benefits and they're too concentrated. It's a perfect example of misuse of marketing. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to look at, well, how do essential oils actually synergize nicely with herbs? And this is how we can really get their benefits. So essential oils by themselves cannot be said to give us nutrition, but they can do all kinds of things to support our nutritional intake and assimilation and help us in lots and lots of different ways. So they can be used synergistically with herbs very, very effectively. We just have to be very careful about considering them as a nutraceutical product for internal consumption. But on the other hand, the aromatic plants that contain the essential oils are widely found in nutraceutical products. So this is really just, here is a really strong family of compounds. Let's learn how to use them correctly.
Synergy number 6, reduce upper GI inflammation and support digestive functions using synergies of botanical medicines potentized with prebiotics, probiotics, enzymes, and saponins.
Right. So this is a really good example of how effectively and nicely herbs and nutraceuticals can combine. And so there's a lot of overlapping functions between certain herbs and probiotics, certain herbs and prebiotics. So actually, many herbs are prebiotics. A really good example is the medicinal mushrooms, which more and more people are learning about now. But many people may not know that medicinal mushrooms are really supportive of the gut microbiome and go perfectly with probiotics. Then at the other side of the digestive tract, we have all of these things for GERD and reflux and acidity and gastritis and all these things. And there are many nutraceuticals that can definitely make this worse and a few that can make it better. So we're going to look at the similarities of functions between digestive enzymes and herbs, and how do we actually balance these things? And there's a number of nutraceuticals that people may not know about, like the alginates from seaweed that are really coating, soothing, mucilaginous. And we look at things like licorice and slippery elm. These things are perfect for upper GI inflammation from the herb department. Then what can we do from the nutraceutical department to support that also? So basically, we're looking at upper GI, lower GI, and the products that are found in both nutraceuticals and classical herbology and putting them together for maximum benefits.
And the final module, Synergy 7, reduce stress, regulate metabolic processes, and enhance brain function using synergies of botanical medicines potentized with amino acids, peptides, glandular, and oil nutraceuticals.
Right, that's a lot of nutraceuticals. There's a lot of products out there that are based on amino acids and peptides and glandular and oil nutraceuticals. So glandulars, this is not something that the vegetarians are going to be interested in using. Animal-derived products. And animal-derived products actually have a very important role. And sometimes what I have seen in clinical practice is that people's physiology comes to a place, especially as we get older, where we start to need more animal protein. And at the same time, our ideology doesn't really agree with that. And so how do we work through this? Well, there's a lot of things that are really nutritive, and herbal medicine has a lot of things that can be very helpful, but sometimes we just need to use real targeted animal products that can help us without actually having to eat a lot of meat. And so this is a common conversation in clinical practice. And in this department, we have a number of products that are marine derived. Okay, we have fish oils, we have krill oils, things like that. And these are very important forms of nutrition, but they're also very complicated topics in terms of quality control and sourcing and all these things. And the more we know about it, the more we can make an educated decision about it. But we're looking at things like some of the amino acids for healing the gut lining, like L-glutamine, or using some of the collagen products for joint and skin support.
Well, it is an incredibly rich set of teachings you've created here, and really amazing applications, and really understanding how to synergize between all these different possibilities of different substances, nutraceuticals, and herbs that can really enhance our health when they're optimized together. So really great stuff. And again, it's laid out in a lot more detail at superherbscourse.com. I'll also share a little bit more detail about some other dimensions of this program. So you're going to get not only 7 90-minute live sessions with David, which is going to include interaction time and also time to ask your questions directly, which is super valuable. You'll get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for at home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses designed to enhance your journey. There's a video teaching from David on discover the therapeutic similarities of nutraceuticals and herbs. There's also a video teaching from David called Safely Combine Herbs and Essential Oils. And you'll also get 10% off 2 of David Crow's favorite herb companies, Herbal Supplier Discount Package. And there's one special bonus that you'll see on the page there that's available only for those who sign up on the first day, on today. So we like to do this as a little extra encouragement for you to sort of tune in and get a sense for whether this is the right next step for you. And if you do move forward today, you're going to get a special bonus teaching. This is called Effectively Use Nutraceuticals with the Guidance of Ayurveda. David, want to share a little bit about that special bonus they get if they sign up today?
It's a really extensive introduction to this Ayurvedic principle of taste and energies of herbs and nutraceuticals. The bonus class goes into quite a bit of detail about what do these terms, Rasavirya, Vipak, and Prabhav, and Gunas, what do they mean? And then we look at examples of this in the nutraceutical products and break it down so that we start to explore the actual taste of these nutraceuticals. It's a real basic starting point. What do these things taste like? Okay, because from the taste, that is how the physiological process starts. So the taste is determined by the compounds, and the compounds then have are the basis of activating the physiological responses. So the taste is the physiological response. And likewise, there is virtually nothing that is out there now that is correlating nutraceuticals into heating or cooling, or looking at their post-digestive effects, or looking at them from the standpoint that this is heavy on your system or light on your system. So this is what we are examining here in quite a bit of detail.
Really great. That's a great extra motivator to sign up right away, get access to that really comprehensive look at the using nutraceuticals with Ayurvedic principles. So really great program here, David. We're super excited to partner with you on it. We've kept the investment for this program really accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full, or with 1 payment of $349. The course is going to begin April 11th and run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And I always encourage people to go to the page and read through the testimonials, because that's really a sense of how your life can benefit. So I love down-to-earth approach to healing, profoundly resonate with integrating spirituality and herbalism. Highly recommend anyone looking to learn more about herbalism. People really rave about David as a teacher. He's obviously so knowledgeable and really dedicated to you being able to take decades of wisdom and apply them in a way that just simply makes your life better. So you're in great hands, and you're going to get some really valuable information and practices, and I think have a really fun time as well. So again, you can get all the details at superherbscourse.com, and you get that special bonus. Effectively use nutraceuticals with the guidance of Ayurveda when you sign up by midnight tonight. So, David, thank you so much for this hour. Always a pleasure. Anything still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the full Super Herbs program?
Just thank you to everybody for joining us on this call. Thank you for your interest in this very important subject. I think that it is a topic that is increasingly necessary to understand for our healthcare. And Stephen, thank you again for another opportunity to develop this work further and share it with people. Much gratitude.
Much gratitude to you, David. Thank you all for joining, and look forward to seeing many of you in the program. Many blessings.